is your marriage or your relationship or whatever. It's about you and the person on the couch with you, or the person who should be on the couch. Because if he or she isn't, holler. Get him or her out here. This is compulsory viewing. We're going to talk about saving marriages, about making marriages better. And we have with us the guru, the marriage doctor. He's in town here. He's just had a workshop, and you will be getting a free sample as you see him tonight working with live people on making marriages better. Now, let's turn the clock back for our viewers about 48 hours. Before this workshop started, on Friday morning, we had 4 of the people who are with us tonight were on AM Northwest. And this is how that went. Let's have a look.
I get upset when I go to use the car after she's used it and the inside is totally trashed.
I would like you to understand that I do the best I can. Sometimes the children are crying when I bring them in, and sometimes, I can go back out and do it later.
I would like you to, when I speak to you, I'd like you to stop, look at me, and listen to what I have to say.
All right. You're 2 of those we just saw that were on AM Northwest. Could you give us your names, please?
I'm Joanne Rogers.
I'm John Rogers.
All right. You've been in now for, as I understand it, for 2 days of pretty intensive sessions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
You've devoted your weekend to it. It's now Sunday night, a beautiful Sunday night, but you've been indoors over this beautiful weekend, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. What did you learn?
Well, I learned that the little things that we fight about aren't really what we're fighting about. The anger that we express when we fight isn't about what we're doing, it isn't about what's been happening, like when on that little clip on the AM Northwest, I had complained about him leaving stuff in the car.
Trashing the car.
Right, well,
No,
she trashes the car. he doesn't get stuff out of the car when I ask him to get out of the car. The point, the gist of that whole thing got down to is that he didn't listen to me. And my parents didn't listen to me when I was younger. And so when I express that anger to him, I'm really feeling a pain, from not being listened to as a child. And so you sort of look at things differently. When he's angry at me for something, I can look at him and realize that, he's not really mad at me for, something I did, and that he is a wounded child. And that's what we learned about.
Well, I noticed that while you were talking, this wounded child to your left here was looking. You were looking at her.
He was listening to me.
That's one of the things we've learned.
Okay, so you've opened up your communications. You think it's going to stay with you?
Well, we're going to have to work at it.
Let me ask you, how would you characterize your marriage before you started the session, the workshop?
Well, one word that comes to mind to me is just disconnected. We lived together, but we weren't connected.
Yeah,
John, what do you think of that?
It's like we were just going along and living together, but not really getting to know each other.
Fair to say that marriage was on the rocks or strained?
Strained.
It was strained. I didn't want to stay like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to get divorced. I wasn't ready for that. I was looking for an answer, but it was definitely strained. I wasn't going to accept it like it was for very much longer.
Wanted something better.
Right.
Now, I'd ask if you 2 would introduce yourselves.
My name is Greg Hammond.
And I'm Dee Dee Hammond.
Dee Dee, and we just saw you, too, as you entered into this intensive weekend. Let me ask you how you would characterize your marriage.
Now or before?
Well, before. Let's go before.
Oh, I basically think that we were staying together because of the children. We both have been married before, and it's easier to leave the second time, I believe.
So actually,
And,
you weren't staying together for the marriage, for each other. That means the
We had a
marriage
hard
was in
time.
effect over, in your view, if you're just
No.
staying for the children.
No,
You don't agree with that?
I don't agree with that.
But that's the way you put it.
I felt that either we needed to do something or eventually the marriage was going to be over.
So, again, 48 hours of intensive training. What do you come away with?
Tools.
I think we have the tools to save our marriage.
What kind of tools?
Well, myself, I get very angry and get into a rage, and I think I can contain that now
How are you going to contain that?
with the tools we Dr. Hendrix showed
Well,
us.
let's just move over to the left here, and there's a good introduction there. Would you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
I'm Harville Hendrix.
Harville Hendrix, Ph.D., the author of the best-selling book, Getting the Love You Want, a guide for couples that comes not only with a good sales record, but tremendous rave reviews. I would say that you are perhaps, at this point, the leading guru in that league, which is saving marriages. Dr. Hendrix, fundamental, or close to fundamental, to your program, your book, your whole philosophy, your techniques, the tools we've heard about, fundamental to all that is a theory that goes back to why we choose the mates we choose. Would you tell our viewers what that is?
Yeah, it's a theory that says that you pick a partner whose personality is similar to a composite personality of all your caretakers when you were in childhood.
Your parents.
Your parents. Or anyone else who was taking care of you when you were little, because sometimes you have a nanny or an uncle or an aunt or a grandmother. But that we absorb all that and create an image in your unconscious mind that blends all those people together into one image that I call an imago. And that imago then is an unconscious image that functions to select a person whose personality matches the traits in the inner unconscious image, in the imago.
What about, now, I notice you saying that you're not saying to look to the nuclear family. You're not saying, say, that the man goes out and looks for someone like his mommy, or the girl goes out and looks like somebody but daddy, but a composite.
It's a composite of everyone who was responsible for your survival and care when you were a child.
Now, are we capable of putting together some sort of composite like that in our minds? How
Well,
do we
it's
do
an
this?
automatic function of the mind. The mind is a synthesizing process. It takes data in all the time and rearranges it and organizes it into some sort of whole. So it's the natural thing. It's not anything we can be proud of. It's just something we naturally do.
Now, if I were to say to you, well, I were to say, I'll play the part and say, this sounds like a bunch of pop psych. I mean, how do you know? Convince me. Supposing I say, oh, bull, I didn't go out and look for somebody who was a mix of my mother and dad. That sounds like bull. Convince me that I'm wrong.
Well, it'd be hard to convince you if you already decided you were right.
Well, try. Not always right, but never in doubt. But no, I mean, you know, I'm the skeptic. Yes. Make your case to me. That
well, one of the things I would ask is, are the frustrations that you're having with your partner familiar with you? Mm-hmm. Familiar to you? That is this something that's happened before? Are you attracted to a similar kind of woman? And you might say yes or no or something like that. But as we looked at you more carefully, we would find that the frustrations that you have with your partner would be very similar to memories you'd have from childhood. And we'd also find that you were attracted to the same type of woman, even though she might look very different and act very different, but there'd be something similar about them.
So essentially you're saying that you've learned this through dealing with people.
Yes.
That when you follow this road, this is where the path takes you.
Right. And
it's
the path,
empirical experience.
Empirical experience. The path ultimately takes you to understand that all of us are trying to get something resolved that was left over from childhood in our marriages. And the reason that happens is because the partner you pick is similar to the parents with whom the problem was created. And the unconscious mind brings that problem to a person in adulthood who was similar to your parents.
So how does this lead to fights? How does this lead to conflicts?
Well, the way it leads to conflict is that both people do the same thing. They both bring their agendas to the relationship to get them resolved, and neither one cooperates, because one comes expecting the other one will respond. Now, this is an unconscious process. So I come expecting you to respond to my needs, but you've come expecting me to respond to your needs, and neither one of us responds to either one's needs. And so then we get into the typical sort of reactions that we had when we were children, but now they're in grown-up form. You could run away from home when you were little, but now you drive away in your car. Or you could go to your room when you were little, and now you go out and have a drink with the boys. You know, those are just grown-up versions of childhood behaviors, and we use them to try to coerce our partners into giving us what we want by using negative, painful, coercive tactics, which of course gets you responded to with negative, painful, coercive tactics on yourself.
All right, now I told the folks out there viewing that you'd be working with some live people, and so let's look around some of these live people and look for guinea pigs here. Now, I just want to ask the people here, why do you fight? What do you fight? What do you fight about? What do you fight? You, sir, what do you identify yourself, please?
Bob Lohman, our children.
You fight about your children? What's the bone of contention?
Go back to the beginning. We have
just
six.
very briefly. What is it?
Well, some is I would want them to wear short hair. Harriet wanted long. She said long hair would be okay. I didn't want my girls to shave their legs. She said it was all right. I mean, things like that would, I didn't want my girls to stay out late. Harriet said you gotta have confidence in them.
So you're clashing over your image of your children.
Right.
Okay, who else? What else do you fight about, folks? Fights. Yeah, tell me people don't fight? Nobody fights? What do you fight about here?
Would it be helpful if I gave you a list of what people fight about?
At this point, yeah, it would be. Okay,
in
go
order
ahead.
of frequency.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Dr. Joe Trainer, yeah. The first thing they fight about is personality mismatches. The second thing is money. The third thing is relatives. The fourth thing is sex. The fifth is pregnancy. The sixth is child raising. The seventh is household management. The eighth is recreation. That's the order. And these happen in 60 to 90% of all marriages, whether they're good marriages or bad marriages.
That sound right, audience? Yes. How many people here fight about money? Well, I say yes, but no hands are going. There's some hands going up. And what, relatives? Relatives. Now, I felt that. Okay, what's the battle about relatives? What do you two fight about?
About relatives is how to deal with some of them.
Okay, so you're in category number 3 that we just heard. Would you identify yourself, please?
Jeff Winston.
And you're married?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And you do fight?
Oh, on occasion.
And it's about the relatives.
Yeah, that's one
We
topic.
have.
Yeah.
In the past.
Others? What are the others?
Most of the things, some of the things in the list. Money on occasion, rarely, but on
I
occasion.
think household management,
Yeah.
which you said
It
is
was
one of the
low on
lower
Yeah,
categories.
we ended up fighting about that a lot. Recreation on occasion.
All right, I'm hereby going to designate you as our official guinea pigs for round 1. Doctor, these two people that we see here fight about relatives, money, household management, various things. You have a technique that makes this fighting less violent and less destructive. It's called mirroring. You want to demonstrate mirroring for audience with these people?
Do this. Now, what were your names?
Jeff Winston.
Jeff?
Nancy.
Jeff and Nancy. I'd like to have you help demonstrate this technique. So you have to move rather fast to do it. And it's a communication device that has a lot of other names called active listening, mirroring, responsive listening, and so forth. So basically what I'd like you to do is to say something to each other that you would typically say if you didn't have any information about how to say it well. You know, your typical fight. Would you turn and look at each other and sort of talk quickly about any one of those topics?
Okay.
Gripe and complaint to each other.
We got a pretty recent one. I don't understand why you get angry all the time because a car breaks down. You know, it just happens. That's part of life. What do you get so worked up about?
Well, it's usually my car that breaks down, and I need a way to get to work, and there's no public transportation. I get really frustrated.
Well, I understand that, but it just, you get irrational in dealing with how there's a problem with the car, and start running around yelling, and I'll try to take you to work. I can't help it. I have to get to work too, and I understand you need to get there. But, when you start getting really unreasonable and I'm trying to fix the problem, it just drives me nuts. And I try to tell you, well, let's do this, and you'll say, let's rent a car, and I might say at first, no, let me try to fix it first, and then I'll say, oh, gee, I can't handle this. So let's rent the car, and then you say, no, you don't want to do it. So I feel like you don't want to fix the problem.
Okay, let's stop you here. Now, since he started the complaint, I'm going to ask you to do something different from what you did initially with the complaint, and that is, the best you can, say back to him what you heard him say with all of this about what he's frustrated with you about.
What I heard you say is that I need to accept that the car will break down sometimes, and you don't want me to get irrational about it, but work with you on fixing the problem.
Now, you check out to see how accurately she's heard you. Is that like 10%, 80%, 100%?
I'd say that's 90-95%.
90-95%. Is there any particular part that she didn't hear in the 5% that was important for her to hear?
No, not that important, I don't think.
Okay, so you've checked out that what she has mirrored back is an accurate reflection of what you in fact said. So that's a call a perception check. Now that you have heard the message, you've mirrored it back, he said it's accurate, then it's important for you to respond to to what the message is. Now, respond to what that message feels like inside of you, not to what you were thinking about before or to your history or to the past, but to that particular transaction as it occurred in that moment in time. So say to him, having heard and understood what you said, this is what that stirs inside me. And say that to him.
Okay. Let's see. Having heard what you said and understood it, I understand that you get frustrated with me for dealing with the problem in that way.
Okay, and understanding that, it stirs something inside of me. Go on to the next thing that stirs in you.
Understanding that,
It makes me feel or think.
it makes me feel more empathetic to your point of view about how I react to it.
Okay, now you mirror that back to her.
Okay, so after you've heard and thought about how I feel, it makes you willing to be, or makes you feel more empathetic to my feelings about the situation.
So he's heard you accurately
Yes.
about that. So what does that stir in you? Now, that message about her empathy.
It tends to make me...
Now tell her.
Oh, okay.
So having heard that,
Having heard that, if you're willing to be more empathetic to me, then it tends to make me feel less angry about the situation.
so, and then mirror that.
Okay, understanding that you'll feel less angry about it, I feel more willing to be cooperative to work on the problem the way that you want me to.
Okay, so we can cut there. You can see how if you move from polarizing, which you were both doing before, you were talking about yourself and to yourself and arguing from your point of view, and you were stating your point of view and arguing from your point of view, and you were doing what we call polarization. When you change that to dialogue, in which you accurately mirror what you heard, and then later you respond to the message that was sent, you began to move, as you did very nicely, into another piece of your relationship. What did that feel like when you began to do that?
It felt a lot better to me. I mean, it was I guess I felt comfortable and felt like I could almost feel like anger kind of going away or draining away a little bit.
As like, you were mirroring?
Yeah.
What did it feel like to you?
Very similar, that I think that's going to be a much more, a much saner way to deal with problems than the ways that we frequently do.
Feels sane and feels calm, is what the two of you, I think, were saying. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
All right, Doctor. Well, I will thank you too. So what we see here is what you're saying is you don't fight back, but in essence you're putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yes.
And you're, there's not an antagonistic response, but there's a response of understanding, and then you work that,
right. I call
back
it
and forth.
You stretch your consciousness to include the awareness, the experience of the other person.
Now that's another book word from your book, stretching. That's another one of your tools. Explain that to me, will you?
Well, it's basically an awareness that all of us have created from childhood, what we call in the trade adaptations and defenses to life as a result of our childhood injuries and pains. And so we get fixed into a certain position. Some people are tight, some are loose, and we're all defended. So when your partner comes along, what they usually do is ask you to relate to them in a way that would impact the part of you that's sort of fixed. But that part of you that's fixed is a result of an injury from childhood. So when your partner says, talk to me, hear me, listen to me, or touch me, that always impacts a part of you that's not available, that's been frozen as a result of the childhood experience. So in order to grow, you have to stretch out of your comfort zone into the discomfort zone. You have to stretch into a part of you that's unfamiliar, that's uncomfortable, and give or express something that's not natural.
For instance, give me an illustration.
Well,
Well, I was just going to say that one thing I need most is some feeling validation. And the one thing that he cannot do is express feelings. So what we learned, was, well, why did we ever match up? Well, he needs to learn to express those feelings to become whole, and I need them to feel nurtured. And that's just how it works. We complement each other. Our needs sort of complement each other.
You feel you had childhood wounds?
Oh, I know I had childhood wounds.
Did you?
Not as many as she did.
Childhood wounds?
Definitely.
How about let's see, how many people here have gone through the session? How many of you are convinced that you came to marriage with childhood wounds. Okay, I'm going to just say that's about unanimous. And of course, that's again fundamental to your philosophy, is the idea that we come into marriage with wounds. That's your word, wounds from childhood.
Right.
How do we deal with these? What I'm going to lead you into, I'm throwing you in the straight line, I'm going to lead you into your container, because I find that fascinating, your container tool. How does that work in dealing with childhood wounds?
Well, the thing that happens in childhood is that you don't get your needs met, the nurturing needs. And any need you don't get met creates a frustration, and behind that is resentment. And of course, you're little and you don't know how to deal with all that. And you build it all up. And that build-up of resentment becomes the basis for adult rage and anger. So you have a sore toe, your partner steps on your toe. They didn't make it sore, but they stepped on the soreness that was already there. And then you explode out into your marriage. So what has to happen is there have to be devices by which you can deal with anger in such a way that you bond instead of split or separate. And the container is a way of doing that. One person becomes the nurturing person, or the container, the receiver, the receptor, the empathic person. And the other person who's been frustrated goes deeply into their frustrations and into the rage and anger. And this person who is listening does not react, does not respond, does not criticize. You listen empathically. You listen with understanding, because what you're basically hearing with anger is pain. Underneath all anger is hurt and pain that comes from childhood. It feels better to be angry than to express your hurt, so we tend to go to that. So the container is a way of allowing that anger that comes from childhood, triggered in the marriage, to be discharged in such a way that you get to the hurt. And when you get to the hurt, that's the wound. You know, you don't ever listen to me, you don't touch me when I need you to touch me, you're never there. And while all of that is being said, your containing partner holds you and embraces you. So you are being loved in a way that counters what you're reporting to be your childhood experience.
All right. Now,
and that brings
we
together.
say in television that a videotape is worth 100,000 words.
Yes.
And for our viewers, we have Dee Dee and Greg here. We have the videotape of your actual experience in conducting a container. Now let's have a look at that for our viewers.
I feel that he doesn't listen to anything that I say.
You feel I don't listen to anything that you say?
That is accurate.
Okay.
If I tell you something or ask you something, you won't even acknowledge me, that you've heard me. Or you will say, yeah, I need you to say yes, okay, or whatever, but you don't acknowledge me at all. And so then I repeat myself, and if you don't like that I've repeated myself, you'll yell at me that you answered me when you know you did not answer me, or that I could not possibly have heard you answer me. And then you turn it around that I'm nagging at you. And I'm not. I just want you to acknowledge me.
Yeah, bring that to him in full intensity. I'm tired of not being listened to.
I'm tired of not being listened to.
Scream it at him.
I'm tired of not being listened to.
Louder. Let him really hear it. Make him hear you now.
I'm tired of not being listened to and acknowledged. I feel like I'm not important enough to care what I have to say or what I need from you.
And that hurts me.
And it hurts me.
It hurts me a lot.
It hurts me a lot.
Would you let him hold you? Let yourself feel your hurt. Would you move over and sit here on his knee? Good. And put your head down here. And let yourself feel his nurturing, and let yourself cry. Let the sobbing come. Yes, right.
Dee Dee, that experience I can see is still, from the tears in your eyes, is still fresh.
Very fresh.
I noticed that you were moving right along. And it's interesting to me, a couple of cues there maybe to move her. You helped her shape it, but you followed, it seemed you followed quite naturally. You're not an actress,
No.
are you?
No.
Not at all. Well, we've just seen Greg take what I would call a pretty good emotional chewing out. And he sat in silence and took it. What became of that? We're going to find out in just a minute. We have to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Habitat for Humanity helps low-income families afford a basic home. The Portland project of this nonprofit organization is looking for qualified families to work on and buy renovated houses. Habitat provides interest-free loans and low monthly payments for purchasers. To find out if you qualify, you're invited to an informational meeting Tuesday, August 15th at the Northeast Portland YWCA. KATU and Habitat for Humanity are working neighbor to neighbor for a better community.
Please welcome to Pioneer Courthouse Square the fabulous Temptations and soul-singing sensation Etta James and the Roots Band. Tell Mama all about it. Tell Mama what you need. Tell Mama what you want. And I'll make everything all right. Papa was a rolling stone.
Celebrate summer and the best in country music in the spirit of the Northwest. KATU, along with Thriftway, This Week Magazine, and KWJJ, present for the first time the new Pioneers of Country Music Festival, Saturday, August 19th, with rising stars the O'Kanes, Southern Pacific, and country great Ricky Skaggs. Tickets are on sale at all local Thriftway stores. For more information, call 657-6958. Come enjoy the first ever New Pioneers of Country Music Festival.
On Inside Edition, comedian Jackie Mason and billionaire Abe Hirschfeld were bosom buddies, but then they had a tiff.
I didn't need you, and I didn't need anybody.
I don't need nothing from Jackie.
Abe says he helped relaunch Jackie's career.
I sparked this whole sparkle of life in Jackie Mason.
Jackie says...
And you had nothing to do with my life, you pig.
The feud blow by blow on Inside Edition.
Monday night at 7:30 on Channel 2.
Here are two great reasons to watch daytime television. Regis Philbin and Kathy Lee Gifford.
I'm not putting my head in that lobster.
Okay, I don't know how we...
Regis and Kathy Lee. Together, they make your weekdays come alive.
How do you like that?
Weekdays at noon on KATU.
Container, Part 2, coming up. But first, Greg, as I told our viewers, we just saw you taking a very emotional chewing out. No other way to describe it. How did it feel to take that? How did it feel to sit back and take that?
Well, at first it was hard because I wanted to, like any other time, lash out and really let her have it.
But you're under instructions.
But you're under instructions to keep it, to just sit and be quiet. And it really opens your eyes. You know, it's like a mirror right there. And you're looking into it, but somebody's speaking off to the side.
And you found, as I say, did you find? You say you found a change. You changed in the course of it. Your reaction changed.
Well, I realized how important it was to her before. It was just like, yeah, I'll get to it, or I'll catch you later. But now it's different. I realize how much it means to her to respond and acknowledge her when she talks to me or makes a statement. Or
was that as emotional for you as it was for her?
Very much, yes.
Okay, as we said before, where does it lead? What'll come of it? Let's show our viewers another clip and we'll see the follow-up, Container 2.
I really would like it if, when I'm talking to you, that you looked back at me, perhaps with a smile on your face, and your eyes focused at me, so that I could feel that you were listening to me.
Okay. Would you mirror that back?
She would.
Mirror it to her.
You would like it that when you spoke to me or talking to me that I could show my acknowledgement by looking at your eye contact and perhaps even smiling at you when you speak to me.
Okay. Number 1. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Number 2.
Well, I really hate the eye rolling. I mean, I don't want to be negative, but I would like it that you could refrain from...
I want you to hold your eyes steady.
I want you to hold your eyes steady. when I say something to you that you're not happy about.
Okay.
When you speak to me about something I may not like to hear, you want me to refrain from rolling my eyes.
No, mirror back as what she asked, to hold my eyes focused and steady.
You want me to hold my eyes focused and steady at yours when you speak to me, perhaps about something that I don't want to hear.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Number 3.
If I am talking to you and you're in the middle of doing something, you would acknowledge me immediately and let me know when you can talk to me.
Okay, now you've heard her accurately. These are gifts, so you decide which gift of the 3 you would give her, or whether you would give her 2 of them or 3 of them.
Well, I could probably give you the...
Not a probable. It has to be a gift or not a gift.
I would give you the gift where I...
Tell her what it'll be, yes.
Where I kept eye contact and acknowledged when you spoke to me or asked me questions. And I will give you as a gift to stop rolling my eyes, because I know that bugs you.
So I'll stay focused.
I'll stay focused without rolling my eyes.
Okay. It's number 2.
Well, number 3 would be hard, but I will try to give you, if I'm reading or out tinking in the garage and you want me to come in and talk with you, I will give you a time, whether it's 5, 10, 15 minutes when I can be available.
Thank you so much.
All 3. That's
All
300%. Okay.
Doctor, what I should have told our viewers before that the idea, the way you close the container is just what we heard there. You get 3 requests and you have to allow at least 1 as a gift. What's the function of that? What does that achieve? What's the idea?
There has to be a behavior change. You can't just talk, can't relate, and you can't make promises. You have to actually change in order to touch your partner's wounded space. And so he will have to stretch out of that part of him that's comfortable to him into a discomfort zone to gift her something without charging her for it. That is, it must be unconditional. It must be something that has no strings attached.
So there's no, if you'll do this, I'll...
None of that. Bargaining doesn't work in relationships. It has to be a gifting. That's what the unconscious accepts, is an unconditional gift.
And what does that do? What do you achieve? What have you done?
Well, when he gives her the gift, he'll have to give it from the part of himself that was repressed in childhood, which means he has to activate and evolve and grow that part back. And everything he does restores that to him. And the gift will be something that's directed exactly at her childhood wounds, so that she gets what I call healed while he becomes whole.
How many people here went through the container process in the session? Any others who went through that process? you were the only one.
We get to demonstrate it only once in the actual workshop.
Okay. Then the question I have is, typically, if you had to look back, when gifts are given, what kind of gifts do people give? What do you hear the most often when this process ends up?
Well, people want, it's so much what is given, what people want are things like, listen to me intently, validate what I'm saying as something that is really being said, that doesn't sound crazy. It's hold me a certain way so that I can feel that I'm really held. Be reliable for me so that when you say something, you follow through with it, and I don't have to be anxious that you're not going to do it. There's things like that are very, very visceral, very concrete, and very much connected to what we needed when we were children.
Any requests here you'd like to share with us? Anybody got a request?
We made them of our partner.
Pardon?
We made our request of our partner.
Mm-hmm. And that's done. Now, I'm going to take it to another thing you mentioned, because this is something that's important about how to hold people.
Yes.
How do we hold? What's this got to do with it?
Well, when you're little, the most common thing that happened to you was being held by your parents. And that experience of being held is a very nurturing and life-giving experience. Then we lose it when we begin to walk around and begin to talk. The holding process for most kids begins to diminish, and adults wind up with the need to give each other the holding that didn't get finished in childhood. The second thing is that when you're held as an adult, you experience a recreation of the childhood experience, the pain or the pleasure of that, and in most cases, it's pain. So the holding experience is a way of recovering that and healing it.
Does it work? You people try
Yes.
it? You say it worked? What was your experience like in that?
When Stephen held me, I felt protected, taken care of. I existed. I was a person. I was somebody. I wasn't ignored.
Let's again, we'll come back to you, but for now, let's show a holding experience to our viewers so they can see firsthand what this technique is about.
I just have a total feeling of loneliness about my childhood. You know, like I lived in this house with all these other brothers and sisters and these parents, and that nobody was ever there for me. I always tried to be, you know, the perfect little girl. I was the kid in the family who never got in trouble. I did bad things, of course, but I never got in trouble. And I never got any attention unless I don't know. One way I used to get attention was by getting good grades in school. I was the straight-A student in the family, and 4 times a year I'd get, you know, like a pat on the back or something for bringing home that really great report card. It hurts when I think about it. Looking back, you know, as a silly little girl, you know, just wanting to be accepted by her parents. But doing all those good things, you know, I thought I was doing, didn't seem to work.
I just didn't seem to appreciate you.
I did everything. I cooked dinner, I did laundry, I did everything.
It seems like it wasn't enough for me.
It's never enough. I know that's why you know, it seems so important for me to feel like I'm accepted by you.
John and Joanna, so our viewers can get the full impact of that, I'm going to ask you, if you would, to relive recent history. Would you strike that pose for us exactly how you did that holding? I'm not sure our viewers could see that.
We were on the floor. If you
All right, there it is. You got it. Because I do want the viewers to see exactly, because the position is important, isn't it?
Absolutely important, yeah. And what's important is that you go ahead and say, you lie
I was just going to say that he just supports me in such a way that I can, for me, cuddle up to his chest and feel protected and safe.
Do it.
Okay.
Do it.
This is how I did it.
Right on the floor. Doctor, what's the magic in the position?
Well, the basic position is this a position for nursing. Babies are held by the breast, you know, right by the breast to be nurtured, and even if you're not breastfeeding, you give the bottle that way. So it's a very regressive position within which charges up the memories, and the memories that are coming up here are memories of pain, but the memories of pain are coming up while you're being hugged and nurtured in a way that was inconsistent with the painful memories. So the healing process that occurs is you bring the pain memories into consciousness while you're being loved, and that heals the wound.
Well, viewers, more questions, more techniques, more answers, and the question we're going to look at when we come back is going to be, are you maybe married to the wrong person? Yeah, we'll be right back after this.
I don't know what's wrong with you guys. It's a sports challenge. Some of you people are acting like it's a fishing trip. Somebody tell me what's going on.
Take your shot at the Channel 2 Sports Challenge. Enter today at any Bob Lanphier dealership, and you could take on a member of the Channel 2 Sports team in one of 10 sports.
Steve, we thought this was just for fun.
That's what they're supposed to think.
The Channel 2 Sports Challenge, Fridays on Channel 2 News at 5.
Great kids show their spirit.
A 1989 Tom McCall Community Service Award went to Brothers Gaining Equality Through Excellence. This group of Northeast Portland teenagers was formed to focus on community service and provide a positive alternative to gangs.
Congratulations to these Tom McCall Award recipients from the Benjamin Franklin and KATU.
Come help us celebrate the spirit of today's great kids.
Part of the spirit of the Northwest is tradition. Tradition that brings a consistency to our lives.
At KATU, we believe in tradition. That's why you'll find Channel 2 News and ABC World News Tonight, where you've come to depend on them.
Channel 2 News at 5 with Jeff Gianola and Julie Emery. ABC World News Tonight with Peter Jennings at 6. And Channel 2 News at 6:30 with Paul Lindman and Melissa Mills. Same time, same station, same spirit.
Is the fear of rape on your mind when you're out on a date?
Monday on AM Northwest, find out why acquaintance rape is on the rise in Oregon.
Learn ways to avoid becoming a victim of this crime. Join us at 9.
Okay, here's a question for us all. Married to the wrong person. Does it happen to somebody here been married to the wrong person? Or is or has been married to the wrong person?
I was once.
When did you find out? When did it hit you?
Well, about 3 days after we got married.
What was the clue?
I didn't like him very much.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like that was a very mature relationship you had there.
It wasn't, John.
Yeah, good. Right there, you had your hand up. Did you?
Well, I'm Evelyn McLean, and I'm from Portland State.
Mm-hmm.
And I take the marriage and intimacy course from Dr. Farr. And I found out about 3 years after I was married that I was married to the wrong person.
What brought you to that judgment?
Well, our family life was falling apart, and there wasn't enough food to eat, and financially we had fallen onto bad times, and then there wasn't any stable foundation to rely upon.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to have a little deja vu here? With right there, you, sir?
Yeah, I'm Dennis Taylor, and I'm a person that attended the marriage workshop, and I found out that I was married to the wrong person when I discovered that that person was not meeting my needs. When I discovered that basically the characteristics in my partner were some of the things that I didn't like in my parents, but unfortunately that's what we all do. And so we have to learn to work this out, and you learn to work it out in couple dialogue and in feeling safe at times so that your partner can more or less unload on you if that's what has to take place.
Dr. Hendrix, do we marry the wrong person?
Well, you marry the wrong person if you don't fall in love. If you fall in love, then you marry the right person. Because
how do you know when you fall in love?
Well, everyone knows when they fall in love. You feel wonderful. You feel a warmth.
She thought she was in love. It lasted 3 days.
Well, there were other things going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's a kind of a sense of glow that you've met somebody that feels familiar to you. That's one of the first characteristics of falling in love. And after a while, you kind of feel like you've met them before. I mean, that you've always known them, and that you can't live without them, and that you feel so filled up when you're with them. They're basic characteristics to the falling in love experience. If that happens, if you feel that either on a mild to intense scale, then your unconscious has selected the person with whom you can create maximal healing in your life. Later, however, it won't feel so wonderful because all falling in love experiences turn into power struggles. But the power struggle is not an indication that you're married to the wrong person.
So you have the right person, and now you have to just hang on.
Now you have to learn how to carry out the mandates of the unconscious, which is to help each other finish childhood, to help each other heal the childhood wounds.
Now, one technique we have here are the relationship visions. Would you introduce yourself here?
My name is Lee Nesbitt.
I'm Kathy Van Wyck.
And you two, you matched your expectations. Unbeknownst to each other, you filled out a list of your expectations. And you don't know what's on his list, do you? And vice versa.
Right.
Well, our viewers are going to find out at the same time you do. And Dr. Hendrix is going to take us through this. At first, if we can have, okay, here's Kathy's vision. Cherish the gift of our love. Unconditionally accept and respect each other. There's Lee's vision. All right. What, let's go back to Kathy's here, if we can. That was awfully quick for the non-speed readers among us. Could we have Kathy's vision again, please?
it's on its way.
Okay, and you've seen these, Doctor?
Technical problem.
Well, it's given us a good time anyway. Now we've had a good look at Lee's. We laughed together. And back to Kathy. Cherish, accept conflict, strengthen, live in the present, be honest. Come. Dr. Hendrix, what does that tell you? You've seen their visions.
Well,
what's the message?
When you look at a vision and you see that there are basic similarities of values, basic similarities of desires in terms of how to interact with each other, and basic similarities with regard to how they want to treat each other, like be honest with each other, and as you look at that very quickly, all those factors are there, then you have, in a sense, a correlation that you can then put your skills behind to bring that vision into reality.
What about where there are departures? What about if there are different
departures
visions?
mean you just have more work to do, more growth to do. The idea that conflict and incompatibility means something bad is going wrong, I think is a misnomer. It only means that there's more growth to do. The more incompatible you are with your partner, the more opportunities there are for growth, because it requires you to grow in order to meet that person.
Let me ask your reaction to that. Now you've seen each other's vision for the first time. Chills, expectation, how do you feel about that?
Well, very comforting in that they seem to be very similar. A lot of emphasis on openness and honesty and sharing.
What would you have, how would you, honestly, do you think you would have reacted if you'd have seen something there, you said, oh, no, that doesn't look right to me, I don't like that?
It would really surprise me.
What if he said in his that he'd like to take a separate vacation of a month every year away from you? How would you react to that?
That would be a problem. Definitely be a problem. I think that I feel real confident in our communication that we'd be able to work out a compromise.
What should she do? What should she do in my hypothetical?
Well, as they talked about it, what they would discover is that there's, if he wanted that and she was uncomfortable with that they would have a relationship in which he needed more space and she needed more contact. And that would have arisen out of an unresolved childhood issue in which she had attachment issues and he had separation issues. So what they have to do is stretch toward each other's median, toward each other's strengths. And she might need to give him some more space, but then he would need to be very sure that he gave her more contact.
Doctor, it sounds like you're telling me that every marriage is savable. Is that your view?
Unless you're brain dead, brain damaged, or mentally ill.
Do we agree with that, everybody here? Yes. So who said no? Would you introduce yourself?
My name is Kathleen Jacobs, and I'm a student at Portland State University, and I really don't believe that in some cases people draw images of themselves of what they want in a partner. And after they get into the relationship, they may decide that that is not, in fact, what they really want, because they've never really faced in themselves what they want. And so when they're in the relationship and they've got a real paternalistic situation and one partner is extremely dominant over the other and they don't want that and there is no way to change that other individual, I would say it's time to get out.
I'm going to turn to you because before you said that you were married to the wrong person. And you just heard that unless you were brain dead, you should have been able to save that marriage. Do you agree with that? What do you think of that?
I believe that maybe if my ex-husband was open to some kind of counseling or some kind of beginning communication, which I did suggest, I would have been willing to try to save it, but he was not willing.
Takes two.
Takes two.
And you didn't have two. June, right there, fire away.
I'm Betty Daggett. I'm a divorce counselor, and for 15 years I've been working with an awful lot of couples who sometimes come to me and say, well, I still love him or her, but I can't stand them. And then I do something that I call a marriage sabbatical, which essentially separates out people so they have some time to be self-curious and look at some of the issues, as Dr. Hendrix has talked about childhood. But there are a lot of couples who do realize that their values or their lifestyles are really very different in such a way that they are not symmetrical, they are not compatible.
Even with the reaching out, what you're saying, Betty, is
Sure.
that there is a time to call it quits?
Sometimes.
When is-
Because we expect a lot more from marriage now than we used to. We really do want an intimacy, a togetherness. And rather than choose somebody so very much opposite from us, it is smarter to choose something more like us. And very often we don't do that.
Right there, you sir.
I have
3 exceptions to the general rule that every marriage is savable. Alcoholism, I found that is almost impossible to overcome. Gambling, a person who's a compulsive gambler, and sometimes adultery. Sometimes the woman is so hurt that her dignity is taken away that they just can't come back.
Agreed, Doctor? What do you say about those 3?
Well, I think that those are complications, certainly. But the point that I'd like to say that the lady said back here is if both partners will work, that is, neither one is brain dead, brain damaged, or mentally ill, and both partners will work to stretch and grow, then incompatibility makes it possible to grow in directions that you wouldn't grow in if you didn't have a conflicted relationship with a partner. In the case of addictions, there's often something has happened to the brain, its functioning, and to the personality, and they're not available for the kinds of changes and kind of processing that you could do if you hadn't damaged yourself through
What do you
those kinds
say to
of
the
addictions.
people who say, gee, it's pretty good, how do we make it better? What's your advice to people who feel they don't have a problem, but you say, let's make it better? How?
Well, I think in those cases that probably they need to deepen their communication about, you know, what they really need more of. They need to amplify the positive potential in the relationship. They don't have a lot of conflict to overcome, so they have to find ways to meet each other at deeper and deeper levels. And sometimes couples, when it's pretty good and want to make it better, often find, if that's really the case, that if they then engage in joint projects in relationship to the outside world, that partnership deepens their friendship. And friendship, I think, is the bottom line component
What's
in a
the message?
relationship.
People who've been in the session, our viewers are listening, what's the message of the viewers out there? Let's get some people who haven't spoken. What's the message? What did you learn? Tell our viewers.
I've learned that you really have to work at whatever you want, and no matter what it's going to be, you're going to have to work at it. And I've got the tools now. If I can, with my partner, just try really hard and use those tools.
Others? You, sir, what'd you learn?
I think that we probably learned most that the arguments that we were arguing about, the content of the argument wasn't what was important, but the feelings behind the argument, the pain behind the argument, that was really the important thing. And once you learn that, it's much easier to sit and get past the contents and find out what your partner really is hurting on and deal with it.
Others? Message to our viewers. Right there, you, sir.
You've got to listen to what your partner is saying, and I think that what really got me going is when, in the communication process, is really trying to mirror back what was being said. It slowed me down to the extent where I was hearing it for the first time. And we went through all these processes, and I found out that we're so much more similar than I really thought that we were. And it really brought us close together simply because I would listen. And then the second thing, the real important thing for me, was commitment. And he said, at a point in the workshop, he said, to go on, we have to make a commitment. And that's really where it's at. Saying, if you're going to change, you have to change your behavior. Because whatever you've been doing, we have a happy marriage, but I want to move it to very happy. And whatever we've been doing just wasn't working.
Dr. Hendrix, I want to thank you for coming. And you have agreed that you're going to stay over, because there are going to be a lot of people watching tonight who say they'd like to do this. I understand it's been a very successful workshop, and those who do it, they've got to call tonight.
Yes.
If they want to make your workshop, your holdover town hall workshop, at 284-4676. And I want to ask you, Bill, you learn anything tonight?
Definitely.
Do you think you can make it work now?
I'm committed to it.
All right, if you've at least saved Bill Dolan, you've done something. Thank you all out there for tuning in to Town Hall, and good night.
Part of the spirit of the Northwest is tradition. Tradition that brings a consistency to our lives.
At KATU, we believe in tradition. That's why you'll find Channel 2 News and ABC World News Tonight, where you've come to depend on them.
Channel 2 News at 5 with Jeff Gianola and Julie Emery. ABC World News Tonight with Peter Jennings at 6. And Channel 2 News at 6:30 with Paul Lindman and Melissa Mills. Same time, same station, same spirit.
There's nothing quite like a beautiful garden. Exquisite flowers, fresh vegetables, all in your own backyard. But having a healthy garden takes more than just Mother Nature. It takes patience, care, and expert advice from Master Gardener Ed Hume. Sunday mornings on KATU, discover how to cultivate, nurture, and prune your way to an enchanting garden. Watch Ed Hume on gardening, Sunday morning at 8:30 on KATU Channel 2.
Sizzling style. Outrageous action. It's a show so hot, so spectacular, the public demanded an encore. You got it. Tonight at 5, get ready for an hour of windsurfing that will blow you away. Don't miss a special encore broadcast of the Gorge Cities Blowout tonight at 5 on KATU Channel 2.
The most beautiful golf courses in Oregon, played by the finest golfers in the state. Hi, I'm Steve Arena. Join me for some of the best golf in the Northwest on the KATU Oregon Golf Classic.
This week, Salem Golf Club tees up against Michael Book of McMinnville at Sun River Resort. Catch the KATU Oregon Golf Classic today at 3 on KATU Channel 2.